Stop. Before you scroll past this, before your thumb moves 1 more millimeter, I need you to do something that will feel strange. Put your phone down, right now, on the table, face up. Now hold your hand 6 inches above it, palm down, like you're trying to feel heat rising from pavement. You feel nothing, right? Nothing. Here's what's actually happening in that 6 inches of empty air. Your phone is searching for a signal. Its antenna is pulsing, and in the gap between your palm and that glass screen, there are 1,900,000,000 oscillations occurring every single second. Not particles moving, not heat radiating. An electromagnetic field oscillating at a frequency your biology has never encountered in 3.8 billion years of evolution, passing through your hand at the speed of light, through skin, through blood, through the membrane of every cell in your palm. And when those oscillations pass through a cell membrane, they encounter something. A sensor, a molecular machine called a voltage-gated calcium channel. It has a job: detect electrical changes across the cell wall and open when the right signal arrives. It's been doing this job flawlessly in every organism with a nervous system for 600 million years. But here's the thing nobody told you. That sensor can't tell the difference between the electrical signal it evolved to detect and the field your phone just created. The gate opens. Calcium, which normally enters your cells in controlled pulses, like cars through a toll booth, floods in like a dam breaking. 50 times normal concentration, 100 times in some cells. Your cell reads this as a crisis. It activates emergency protocols. Enzymes fire. Chemical cascades begin. And 7 steps later, at the end of that cascade, molecules called reactive oxygen species, your own cellular machinery, turned into molecular shrapnel, start attacking the one thing in your body that cannot be replaced. The sequence of your DNA, not the atoms, the information, the 3 billion letter instruction set that tells your cells how to build you. Now pick up your phone. Look at it. The telecommunications industry will tell you this device is safe because it emits non-ionizing radiation. True. The government will tell you it doesn't heat your tissue enough to cause damage. Also true. Your phone passed every safety test. It has a certification label. It complies with FCC guidelines written in 1996. All true. But here's what nobody mentions. Those guidelines test for one thing: heat. Does your phone warm your tissue? No? Approved. The biological cascade I just described, the one that's been documented in peer-reviewed studies across 7 countries, the one that was confirmed in a 14-year, $25 million study by the U.S. National Toxicology Program, happens at radiation levels 15 times below the heating threshold. Zero heating. Measurable DNA damage. The safety guidelines are protecting you from the wrong mechanism. I saw this coming. Not cell phones specifically. I died in 1988, before most people owned one. But I spent my entire life teaching one lesson that applies here more than anywhere. The name is not the thing. Non-ionizing is a label. It tells you what the radiation doesn't do. It doesn't rip electrons off atoms. It says nothing about what it does do, and what it does is interact with charged biological structures that oscillate at their own natural frequencies. When you hit them with an external field oscillating 2 billion times per second, 300 million times faster than any electromagnetic rhythm your cells evolved in, you get resonance, you get coupling, you get unexpected effects that don't appear in a framework designed for microwave ovens. I would have looked at the FCC thermal guidelines and asked one question. Did you calculate what happens to a voltage-sensitive protein in an oscillating field at gigahertz frequencies over a period of years? And the answer, the honest answer, is no. Because in 1996, when those guidelines were written, the research on voltage-gated calcium channels and RF radiation didn't exist yet. The reflex study wouldn't publish until 2004. The NTP study wouldn't begin until 2005. The biological mechanism was unknown. So they tested for the mechanism they did understand: heat. And that's where we are today. Carrying devices tested against the wrong standard, emitting fields that interact with biology through pathways that were never part of the safety evaluation. I'm not going to tell you that your phone causes cancer. The epidemiological evidence doesn't support that claim. Billions of people have used phones for decades. Brain cancer rates haven't spiked. But absence of cancer doesn't mean absence of effect. It means the effects are subtle, possibly compensated for by DNA repair mechanisms in most people. Possibly manifesting below the threshold that produces disease, possibly accumulating in ways we haven't thought to measure. Here's what I'm going to tell you. By the end of this, you will understand the 5-step pathway from antenna to oxidative stress. You will understand why a photon with a millionth, the energy needed to break a chemical bond, can still rewrite biology. You will understand the difference between what the physics allows and what the regulations test for. You will understand why I spent my career teaching people to look past labels and ask, what is actually happening? And you will never assume certified safe means fully understood again. This isn't about fear, it's about seeing clearly. I put it best myself. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Your phone is in your hand. You hold it 12 hours a day. You sleep with it 18 inches from your head, and what it's doing to the molecular machinery inside your cells has been measured, documented, published, and almost completely ignored. Not because of a conspiracy, because the label said non-ionizing, and everyone stopped asking questions. Let me show you what happens when you keep asking. I was born in 1918 in Queens, New York. My father, Melville, sold uniforms, never went to college, never took a physics class. But my father understood something that most professors miss entirely. When I was a boy, we would walk together through the woods near our home in Far Rockaway. One Sunday morning, he pointed to a bird sitting on a low branch. That, he said, is a brown-throated thrush. In German they call it a Halsenflügel. In Chinese, it's a Chungling Pu. In Japanese, Katano Takeda. I nodded, ready to memorize. Now, my father said, you know absolutely nothing about the bird. I looked up. You know what humans call it in different languages. You know nothing about the bird itself. Why does it peck at its feathers? Does it walk or hop, and why? What does it eat? Where does it sleep? Those questions, those are knowledge. The names are just sounds we make when we point at things. The name is not the thing. The label is not the explanation. I carried this lesson through every classroom I ever entered. At 24, I joined the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos, the youngest group leader on the team building the atomic bomb. I was surrounded by Nobel laureates, the most brilliant minds of the century, and they remembered me. Not for my equations, for cracking safes. I picked locks on the classified document vaults, for fun, to prove that security was mostly theater, to show that the labels, top secret, restricted, authorized personnel only, meant nothing if the actual mechanism was flawed. I played bongos in Brazilian samba bands, drew nude portraits in my 50s, wrote an autobiography called Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, that reads like a novel and sells like one. In 1965, I won the Nobel Prize in Physics for quantum electrodynamics, QED, the theory that describes with 11 decimal places of precision every interaction between light and matter in the universe. Every single one, including the interaction between the electromagnetic field your phone generates and the charged molecules in your body. I didn't study cell phones. I died before they became ubiquitous, but I built the physics that explains what they do. And more importantly, I spent 50 years teaching people how to think about problems exactly like this one, not by memorizing answers, by asking the right questions. Let me give you the standard explanation, the one on the FCC website, the one in every telecom company's safety documentation, the one your doctor would recite if you asked. Here it is. Your phone emits electromagnetic radiation in the radiofrequency range between 700 megahertz and 2.7 gigahertz. This radiation is classified as non-ionizing. That means each photon carries too little energy to knock an electron off an atom. How much energy does a photon from your phone carry? About 0.00001 electron volts. How much energy does it take to break a DNA bond? About 4 to 6 electron volts. The ratio is roughly 5 million to 1. Your phone's photons are 5 million times too weak to break a molecular bond. So the argument is simple. If you can't break bonds, you can't damage DNA. Case closed. Non-ionizing. Safe. Here's an analogy they like to use. It's like trying to demolish a building by throwing rose petals at it. The petals are too soft. No matter how many you throw, the building stands. Sounds reasonable. It's also incomplete. Because here's what that argument assumes. The only way to damage DNA is to break it directly with high-energy photons. That assumption is wrong, and had I lived to see this debate, would have spotted the flaw in about 30 seconds. Because I understood something that most people, including most regulators, overlook. You don't need a sledgehammer to knock down a building if you can convince the building to knock itself down. Let me show you the mechanism, not the one they test for, the one they don't. Step 1. The oscillating field. Your phone's antenna creates an electromagnetic field that oscillates at 1.9 billion cycles per second, give or take. This field passes through everything: air, glass, concrete. As it passes through your tissue, it encounters charged particles, electrons, ions, and crucially, proteins with charged regions. Step 2. The voltage-gated calcium channel. This protein sits in the membrane of almost every cell in your body: brain cells, heart cells, reproductive cells, skin cells. It has a specific function: control the flow of calcium ions in and out of the cell. Under normal conditions, the channel responds to electrical signals from neighboring cells. It opens briefly, allows calcium to enter in precise amounts, then closes. But the channel doesn't know where the electrical signal comes from. It only knows that an electrical change occurred. When an external electromagnetic field oscillates across the cell membrane, 2 billion times per second, the channel detects it as a signal. The lock reads the wrong key. The gate opens. Step 3. The calcium flood. Normally, calcium enters a cell in controlled pulses. Think of a turnstile clicking once, twice, 3 times. When voltage-gated calcium channels open inappropriately, when they respond to the continuous oscillation of an RF field, the turnstile breaks. Calcium floods in. Concentrations inside the cell spike 50 to 100 times above normal resting levels. The cell notices this immediately. Step 4. The emergency response. When calcium concentrations explode inside a cell, the cell interprets this as a crisis. A chemical alarm begins. Enzymes activate. Specifically, nitric oxide synthase. This enzyme produces nitric oxide. Nitric oxide combines with another molecule already present, superoxide, to form peroxynitrite. Peroxynitrite belongs to a class of molecules called reactive oxygen species. Think of them as molecular shrapnel. Step 5. The DNA damage. Reactive oxygen species attack whatever they encounter: proteins, lipid membranes, and DNA, not by ionization, not by ripping electrons off atoms, by oxidation, the same chemistry that rusts iron, that browns an apple slice. The DNA strands don't break because a high-energy photon hit them. They break because the cell's own chemistry, activated by an abnormal calcium flood, produced molecular fragments that physically disrupted the genetic code: photon to field, field to channel, channel to calcium, calcium to oxidative stress, oxidative stress to DNA damage. 5 steps, 1 cascade, all documented, all published in peer-reviewed journals, all occurring at power levels 15 to 20 times below the thermal threshold. The photon doesn't break the bond. The photon starts a chain reaction that makes the cell break itself. In 1995, a researcher named Henry Lai at the University of Washington in Seattle published something unusual. He had exposed rat brain cells to radiofrequency radiation at 2.45 gigahertz, the same frequency your Wi-Fi router uses, at power levels comparable to cell phone emissions. He found DNA strand breaks, single strand and double strand. This shouldn't have been possible. The photons were non-ionizing. The exposure caused no measurable heating, but there it was, documented, repeatable. The telecommunications industry attacked the study. They questioned his methodology, his sample sizes, his statistical analysis. Some criticisms were valid. Science requires skepticism, but Lai's findings wouldn't disappear. In 2004, the Reflex study, funded by the European Commission, conducted across 12 laboratories in 7 countries, found the same thing: DNA damage in human cells exposed to RF radiation at subthermal levels. In 2018, the National Toxicology Program released results from a 14-year, $25 million study conducted in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Dr. John Bucher, the lead researcher, stood before the press and said 2 words the industry had spent 30 years trying to prevent: clear evidence. Clear evidence of tumors in animals exposed to cell phone radiation across their lifetimes. And what was the response? The FDA, the agency that requested the study, issued a statement saying the results don't change our assessment of cell phone safety. The guidelines remained unchanged. Written in 1996, testing for heat, ignoring everything else. Now here's where I need to be careful, because there's a trap on each side. The fearmongers say, cell phones cause cancer, throw them away. The industry is killing us. Beautiful story, not supported by the data. The epidemiological evidence for phones causing brain cancer is weak. The Interphone study, largest case control study ever conducted, found no overall increase in glioma or meningioma risk. The Danish cohort study followed 350,000 cell phone subscribers for over 20 years. No brain cancer increase. Billions of people have used phones for decades. Brain cancer rates haven't risen. If phones caused cancer in any direct, obvious way, we would have seen it by now. We haven't. But here's where the industry makes its beautiful mistake. They treat no increase in cancer rates as proof of safety. It isn't. Absence of cancer is not evidence of absence of effect. The effects may be subtle. below disease threshold, compensated for by repair mechanisms, accumulating slowly, manifesting as something we haven't thought to measure. The honest position, the position I would take, is this. We know the mechanism exists. Voltage-gated calcium channels respond to RF fields. This has been documented. We know the cascade happens. Calcium floods cells. Reactive oxygen species are produced. DNA damage occurs. This has been measured. We know the guidelines don't test for this. They test for heat. The non-thermal pathway wasn't understood in 1996. What we don't know is the long-term consequence of chronic, low-level exposure through a mechanism the safety framework ignores. And we don't know is not the same as it's fine. Here's where my deeper lesson arrives. In QED, The Strange Theory of Light and Matter, published in 1985, I wrote this. It is my task to convince you not to turn away because you don't understand it. You see, my physics students don't understand it either. That is because I don't understand it. Nobody does. Nobody fully understands what happens when complex, pulsed, modulated electromagnetic fields interact with biological systems that evolved over 3.8 billion years in an entirely different electromagnetic environment. Not the industry scientists, not the regulators, not me. The Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic frequency between Earth's surface and ionosphere, is 7.83 Hertz, about 8 oscillations per second. That's the electromagnetic rhythm in which your biology evolved. Your phone operates at 1.9 billion oscillations per second. That's 240 million times faster than the environment your cells were designed for. In 1965, 2 engineers at Bell Labs discovered something by accident. Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson were testing a horn antenna for satellite communication. They kept detecting a constant hiss. They cleaned pigeon droppings from the antenna, rebuilt the equipment, checked for interference. The noise wouldn't go away because it wasn't noise. It was the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang, electromagnetic radiation that had been traveling through the universe for 13.8 billion years. They cleaned pigeon droppings off the antenna. It was not pigeon droppings. It was the universe. Penzias and Wilson won the Nobel Prize in 1978. And here's the connection that matters. That cosmic radiation is electromagnetic. Just like your phone's signal, different frequency, same physics. The same equations Maxwell wrote in the 1860s describe both. One set of laws, one physics. From the birth of the universe to the antenna in your pocket. Here is the most important thing I can tell you. Radiation is not a substance. It's not a fluid that flows. It's not particles that land on you and stay. Radiation is a pattern, an oscillation of electric and magnetic fields propagating through space at 186,000 miles per second. And here's the thing about you. You are also a pattern. The atoms in your body right now are not the same atoms that were there 7 years ago. Your cells divide and die. Your proteins are assembled and broken down. The water in your tissues exchanges constantly with the environment. But the pattern persists. The information encoded in your DNA, the instructions that tell atoms how to arrange themselves into a human being, continues through matter that is always flowing, always changing. Think of an eddy in a stream. The eddy is not made of water in any permanent sense. It's a pattern that water makes. The molecules flowing through it right now aren't the molecules that were there 1 second ago. The water is always different. The eddy remains. You are that eddy. And electromagnetic radiation, ripples passing through the stream, interacting with the eddy, coupling to its structure, influencing its shape in ways we can calculate but not always predict. When reactive oxygen species damage your DNA, when they introduce errors into the instructions, they're not destroying atoms, they're corrupting information, disrupting the pattern that tells your body how to maintain itself. The pattern is everything, and the pattern is what's at stake. It's late, you're tired, your phone rests on the nightstand, screen dark, battery at 23%, but it's not silent. Right now it's searching for a signal. Its antenna pulses at roughly 2 billion oscillations per second. Those oscillations pass through the nightstand, through the air, through the first few centimeters of tissue closest to it, skin, muscle, the cells in your brain with their voltage-gated calcium channels poised to respond. The fields don't ask permission. They don't know you're there. They interact with charged biological structures because that's what electromagnetic fields do, as my equations predict, as the universe has operated since before Earth existed. Your phone is physics made portable, and now you know something you didn't know before. Not everything. Nobody knows everything. Not the researchers, not the regulators, not the physicists. But something. The 5-step pathway. The gap between what the guidelines test for and what the biology actually does. The distance between the label non-ionizing and the reality of what oscillating fields do to charged molecules. The name is not the thing. What else in your life depends on physics you've never examined? What other everyday objects operate through mechanisms you've never questioned? How much of what you believe is label rather than understanding? I think understanding is the whole point. Not so you can be afraid. Not so you can throw your phone in the trash and live in a cave. But so you can see the world as it is, strange, complex, beautiful in ways no conspiracy theory could ever match, mysterious in ways that real physics reveals and pseudoscience only obscures. I spent my whole life trying to teach people this. The man who explained the Challenger disaster with an O-ring and a glass of ice water, who played bongos and cracked safes and won the Nobel Prize, who looked at the universe with more honesty than anyone before or since. My first principle: you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. From now on, you know. Your phone is not simply exchanging data with a distant tower. It is sending electromagnetic fields through matter, through your matter, through the ancient, irreplaceable pattern that is you. The same physics that bends light around black holes, the same physics that powers the sun. The same physics that has governed every interaction between radiation and matter since the first photon emerged from the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. You hold it in your hand, you press it to your face, you sleep with it inches from your brain. And the universe does not care about your comfort, it never did. But now you understand something, that's the difference. Understanding doesn't eliminate risk, it doesn't guarantee safety, but it lets you make decisions based on what's actually happening, rather than what you've been told is happening. That's my gift. Not the equations, the method. Look past the label, trace the mechanism. Ask what actually happens when field meets molecule, when photon meets protein, when physics meets biology. Keep asking, because the universe keeps answering if you're willing to listen.